So as I mentioned, this is round 2 for request for proposals. The state of Maryland, through the Maryland Department of Environment, authorized up to $25 million for implementation of the Pay for Success financing of nitrogen reductions throughout the SRBC to count towards Maryland's assigned nutrient load under the Conowingo WIP. The SRBC has entered an MOU with MDE to establish this program, and in close cooperation and coordination with MDE, we're proud to have this second round of Pay for Success projects. Our timeline, we released the RFP on September 17th. We're obviously having our webinar today with an ability for questions and answers. Proposals are due to the SRBC via our application website by December 16th by 4 p.m. We hope to have proposals selected and awardees notified by February 5th, and anticipated contract start dates hopefully no later than March 31st. All timelines are subject to change as we have to roll with whatever comes our way. Yeah. Maryland's load for the WIP allocates reduction of both nitrogen and phosphorus coming from the Conowingo Reservoir. The Pay for Success Financing Authority, Maryland has been successful with their Conservation Finance Act and piloted in their Clean Water Commerce Act, and that sort of formed the basis of how we sort of developed this program. We, as I noted, we awarded $11 million to 7 projects during the first round, and we are looking to administer the remaining monies in the second round. So we're expecting to distribute the remaining approximately 11 to 12 million to awardees in this round. We are looking to purchase verified nitrogen reductions. Phosphorus reductions will be counted toward the Maryland CWIP as well, but they're not considered for project selection. Bay program approved best management practices are generally accepted. Susquehanna Watershed, so projects can be located anywhere in the watershed. To be eligible, certain locations will be given priority, and we'll discuss that further. So the proposal requirements, as you'll see when you have the application we do through Amplifund. This is the same application we had for round 1. You have project information, project description, including the cover sheet, payment schedules, certification, and submission. I will note we did make some tweaks to the application, but it largely is the same as the first round if you examined it at that time. Also, when we post this webinar, we will also post the relevant video of our Director of Administration and Finance, Marcia Hutchison, walking through the Amplifund application. So that video will also be posted on our website, I would say probably by the beginning of next week. So just look out for that if you need sort of a tutorial on how to work through the Amplifund process. Go ahead. I will turn it over to Andy to talk a little bit about the project description and the kinds of things that we'll be looking for in the application.
Yeah, so as Jason mentioned, these are some of the basics that that online application will contain, and so there are instructions up on our website that cover, you know, the anatomy of the application and what we're looking for in each section. But we thought we'd just give a quick summary here. So obviously, we're looking for a summary description of the project. And contained with that, you know, as Jason mentioned, largely the application is similar to last year, but under the summary description and as he described the project, you will note we are asking for more information on the financing plan that applicants will be implementing to basically construct and build the project until verification and payment after verification. So just wanted to make that note in the description of the project. C and D are associated with the analysis of nutrient reductions that the applicant anticipates achieving as part of the project. So location and project site details, that's an upload template that's provided on the website. That's where we're looking for the BMP information and where it's located so that we can evaluate the cast run scenarios. And so, we're using the Chesapeake assessment tool for that, and we'll go into a little bit more detail on that in a later slide. But we're also looking for the loads reports from that scenario runs so that we can verify the analyses were done in a manner that we're looking for, and that's accepted by the Bay Partnership for the application. Part E, the proposed verification plan. This is where we're looking for you to demonstrate you have knowledge and experience with implementing the BMP, and you know the process for verifying and reporting it to the member jurisdiction in which it's implemented. So if you have a project implemented in Maryland, you're following their process for verifying and reporting. Same goes for Pennsylvania and New York, et cetera. And then the last one, self-explanatory. We're looking for some timing as far as implementation. Since we're paying for verified nitrogen reductions, that we're just looking for the end result and payment on that end result. The proposed projects can include design work up through implementation. So you'll see, pardon me. You'll see fields in the application where you can define, if you do have a design phase for this project, you can identify that timeline and some of the details. But if you've had other funds that you've used for that and you can move right to construction, that's fine as well. So the application can accommodate projects, however it's phased.
I will say probably from the first round, it's important that the load reports upload. We had that was a snare. If you're having issues, you can reach out to the commission. We have the Conowingo WIP email address where you could ask questions as you work through the application, and we can make sure you're able to physically do what you need to do for the application. The payment information and schedule, that's part of the application. We expect you to describe how much funding you'll request each year and the total amount of funding requested to cover all costs. The rates must be tied to verified pounds of nitrogen being prevented each year. No funds will be provided until outcomes have been produced, verified, and reported. Rates should be inclusive of all costs, including fringe benefits, overhead, and profit. Such as it is, payments are not to exceed 20 years. Costs cannot be front-loaded in the payment schedule. I know we've had a lot of questions about this and issues with this. We've talked with MDE, and it really is the cost. The payment schedule should reflect your cost a pound per nitrogen reduction times the amount of verified and reported pounds reduced each year. That would be your payment schedule. So, for example, a project that prevents 10 pounds of nitrogen per year beginning in year 3 and has a 10-year expected life is selling credits at $10 a pound, would list $100 of each year's 2027 through 2036. So we start, like as Andy said, if you have an implementation phase, we account for that, and then you can have the 20 years of payments on top of that, and that will be built into your schedule. Next slide. The proposal has certain certifications. You have to be able to certify these things in order to submit the application. They're rather self-explanatory, and it's required to effectively submit your proposal. Proposal evaluation. SRBC will screen proposals based on the eligibility criteria, completeness, and project viability. The SRBC reserves the right to reject any proposal based on a nitrogen reduction at a cost deemed too high, where the verification of the reduction or the nature of the project would be too uncertain, or the lack of available funding for the total project cost. All eligible and complete proposals will then be evaluated based on the following criteria. Cost effectiveness. The most cost-effective proposals with the lowest cost per pound will be given the highest consideration. Specifically, the proposals with the lowest cost per pound of nitrogen will receive the maximum amount of points, and the Commission will award points in this criterion to other proposals based on how their cost a pound of nitrogen compares to the lowest cost proposal. The SRBC may group proposals with similar costs for the purpose of awarding points in this category. So For example, we may award 50 points to all proposals that have a cost per pound of under $20. That's an example. No decision has been made on that, but we may group proposals with similar costs for points distribution. Application location. So there are some changes from round one here. So basically, anywhere in the Susquehanna watershed is eligible. However, projects located within the Maryland portion of the basin and Harford and Cecil counties will be given additional consideration of 20 points. We are not providing locational points in this round for projects in the watersheds of Deer Creek, Conowingo Creek, and Otero Creek in Pennsylvania, but they will get the most effective basin points, and any other projects in the area that is part of the most effective basin map will be given an additional 10 points. Good. Projects located in Maryland watershed are also eligible to receive the points for being located in the most cost-effective basin developed by the CWIP Planning Committee as shown on the attached map. Good here. So there's a map. You see Maryland's in yellow. That's the one priority that area there, and then in purple are the priority watershed locations. So the proposals also provide 10 points for projects involving dredging.
Yeah, and then we wanted to touch on, so for project eligibility outside of dredging that Jason just covered, we, as I mentioned earlier, we are using the Chesapeake Assessment Scenario Tool as the evaluation tool for the upfront estimation of nutrient reduction. So it's important, the eligibility of BMPs depends on the presence of those BMPs and their ability to be modeled in CAST. And so, the only exception to that is if it still uses an expert panel approved methodology, which, some of them can be partially modeled in CAST, but then require spreadsheets to be uploaded, supplemental information. So in the online application, you'll find, as I mentioned earlier, you'll find instructions for how to run. We have everything spelled out, how to run CAST evaluations for your proposed projects. We have templates that you can populate and upload. And then we're asking each of the applicants to share their CAST scenario runs. And as Jason mentioned earlier, we have staff available for technical assistance, and you can reach them through the email address that Jason's going to provide at the end of the presentation. So they're available for assistance if you have any questions concerning your CAST evaluations. Also, you'll note on the slide, we're not reinventing the wheel, so all the Bay program partnership guidance on verification, and as mentioned earlier, the reporting mechanism to each state jurisdiction, we're just following their same process. So there's nothing new or different about those processes within this program. So, and then the links are up there on the slide for access.
All right, so the process is selected. Successful projects will enter a pay-for-success contract with SRBC, which is available on our landing page if you want to see the template. And I do suggest you look at that to understand what will be required in the contracting phase. After the contract is fully executed, the SRBC will present the contract and an invoice to MDE for the full award of the contract. Once MDE distributes the total funds to SRBC to pay for the verifiable environmental outcomes associated with the contract, the SRBC will then issue you a notice to proceed authorizing work to begin. So the SRBC makes sure that the entirety of the money to pay for the contract is held essentially in an escrow account with SRBC, that we're able to pay the total cost, and then only then will you get a notice to proceed. No work or activity may be undertaken until that notice to proceed is issued, and the contractor would be proceeding at their own risk prior to receiving that notice to proceed. The application is open now. It is on our website. Again, we will post a video of sort of walking through the application, I would expect by Monday on the landing page. If you need that, that will be available to you at that time. Again, the request for proposal is also on the website. The deadline is December 16th at 4 p.m. So keep that calendared and in mind as we go forward. We will now give you the opportunity to ask questions. I would ask that you put the questions in chat. This helps us keep a record of the written record of the questions, and we'll likely try to put the questions and a summary of the questions and answers also on the landing page when this is done. So if you have questions, please proceed to put them in chat. And then also for Matt Rowe and Jeff Fretwell in Maryland, you would have, when you get the questions, if we need to rely on you, you do have the ability to unmute. Did I have to do anything specific, Pierre? Unmute, okay. All right, Pierre, go ahead if we have questions in the chat.
First question, does SRBC want load reductions calculated as delivered load to the bay or at edge of field?
So the instructions on the online app, it's delivered to the bay. So you'll see instructions that you'll have to run your cast scenarios to reflect that.
Next question, can you clarify the geography activity portion of the scoring? What is the maximum points that could be obtained based on Maryland versus effective basin versus dredging activities?
The points can be stacked as they are. So as I noted, if you're in Maryland, you're in an effective part of the basin, so the points will be 30. If you're also dredging, that will add 10 points.
Next question, is there a maximum cost for one project that SRBC is looking for, or can the entire 11 or 12 million go to one single project?
There's no maximum cost in that sense, but there is, again, noted, our discretion. If you are not the most competitive and there's not enough remaining funds, you could be taking the risk that you will not be awarded. I would say that the best thing, the advice I can give is look at the awards that were handed out. No one went for the whole thing, I think, or was awarded the whole thing. That probably would stay true to round two. But it'll depend on what kind of proposals we get and what kind of costs there are. So, I mean, it's a calculated, it's a calculation you have to make when you submit your proposal. I suggest that if you do something like that, and your proposal isn't at all scalable, that i.e. it could be awarded effectively a partial award, you make that known in the proposal. That may help you in such a scenario.
Next question. To cover upfront costs of project implementation, can the applicant use SFR loans that can be paid back once outcomes are verified?
Andy, do you have a
revolving fund loans? So there is information. So there are conditions on the type of funding that Maryland's looking at. So if you'll note, they're not looking to pay for nutrient reductions that were paid for by other state and federal funds. A revolving fund is something that, new that we haven't had proposed before. At least using government-backed funds. Like if it's a private fund backing a revolving fund, I think that that would be acceptable. But I don't know, Jeff, do you want to jump in and add to that answer?
I mean, we have not specifically discussed this, but I think it's possible we could allow for SRF funds to be used since they have to be repaid and it's a loan, and it wouldn't be loan forgiveness funding, but is the I mean, depending on the location will determine which SRF program you would need to apply to. I don't know. We probably need to check with Penvest as well on the Pennsylvania side. For Maryland, our SRF application process opens in December and closes at the end of January. So it would depend on the location of the project, which SRF program you'd have to apply to, but I think we should discuss it a little more and then get back with a written response just to make sure that we're within the bounds of our funding.
Right. So as Jason mentioned, that question we can look to see if we can develop a good answer on a Q&A that we can post on the website.
All right, next question. Can you provide further clarification on the payment schedule? Will payments be spread out over the lifespan of the BMP based on the annual reduction?
Yeah, I believe yes. So if it's a 15-year BMP, you would be paid each year for the verified reductions from that BMP. All right, are there any other chat questions? I'll give you a moment to put them in.
Do you anticipate future rounds, and is the removal of legacy sediments considered dredging?
So for future rounds, that will be dependent on SRBC finding additional funding sources. So we would love to have future rounds, and we're exploring options of finding funding sources that would help provide that, but they're not at this time. So there's no round 3 plan once this money is spent, but we would definitely be interested in looking at that. So would removing legacy sediments be considered dredging? The dredging is involved dredging in the Conowingo Reservoir. So if the legacy sediments are elsewhere, the answer would be no. All right. Thank you, everyone, for your attendance. We have no further questions in the chat. We thank everyone for your attention. Again, you can go to the landing page, as I said, next week if you want to revisit this webinar. Also, we would have the instructions, the video of the instructions for the Amplifund and how to use that posted as well. And I'll also look to provide a summary of the question and answers to the landing page as well, but look for that in the next week. Thank you very much, and on behalf of Maryland Department of the Environment and SRBC, we thank you for your interest in this program, and we look forward to working with you as we go through the application process. Thank you very much, and have a good morning.